Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll see the story of a mother-in-law who demands a paternity test from her daughter-in-law for her grandson, which leads to a family fight. We'll also cover a woman seeking advice on dating in her 40s as a single mother of 5 kids. We want to invite you to smash that like button and help us reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year to get our first plaque. That's the only contribution we ask from you, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement and share your experiences in the comments for any man who might need them. Without further introduction, let's get started.
When you think you've heard everything there is to hear on TikTok, and then you hear this today. So apparently there's a couple that are getting a divorce because the man was 100% sure that their child was not biologically his. So he pushed and finally had a DNA test. Come to find out the child was not his. Here's where the problem starts. The DNA test also showed that the child was not hers either. There was an investigation launched, and apparently their babies got switched at the hospital. This child's 5 years old. I'm sorry, what? Before I tell you the biggest kicker of them all, if you're planning on having children or are pregnant now, you never let that child leave the room. Ever. Unless you're next to that child while they're leaving the room. The kicker of the whole story is that when they found their actual child, which, side note, their child they had for 5 years, that's their child. Let's be real, whether it's biological or not. But the child that they located was in foster care. How many twists and turns can this story have? The only good part of this story is this family is adopting that child out of foster care. As if that's a good thing, but that's the only positive thing I can see happening out of all this, because no amount of money in the world suing that hospital would ever change any of those circumstances. And I hope and pray to God that they get sued and they get their asses sued and win. I can't see how they wouldn't, though.
The truth is, I expect the same, but this is one more reason why women should allow the DNA test to be done. If it had been done from the beginning, they would have saved 5 years. At least they still have the 2 kids. The kid accidentally won here, but thanks to that father, because of his gratitude, he understood that the child was not his. He was able to save his real son along the way and win a good lawsuit. Smart man, brothers.
This story comes from the AITA subreddit and is titled, "Am I the astronaut for telling my mother-in-law if she expects me to get a DNA test for my son, that I want her to get a DNA test for my husband?" I, 30 female, met my husband, Stephen, 32, at a friend's party. That friend happened to be his cousin. We instantly connected and started dating not long after. We have been happily married for 5 years now and have a 4-month-old son. I met my mother-in-law at his uncle's funeral. He asked me to attend in support of him. Before we left, his cousin warned me about the mother-in-law. He said she wasn't the nicest person, had impossibly high standards to meet, and can be very judgmental. So don't take it personally, as she is like that with everyone. I did ask my husband, and he agreed that mother-in-law can be quite judgmental, but not to worry, that he will be there for me. I felt like they gave me the sugar-coated version of her because she was terrible. She made a scene about bringing a stranger to a family funeral, but my husband cut her off and said his aunt, who was his uncle's widow, said he could. She spent the rest of the funeral giving me nasty looks and making passive-aggressive comments. She made a scene at our wedding, but that's a different story of its own. Why for would you not include this story? It sounds pretty important. But after minimal contact with my mother-in-law, my husband eventually got around to telling her that I was pregnant. Shite. I'm red flagging this because we know that she's going to throw a fit. I expected her to be angry and have a go at him, but she surprised us both and was the complete opposite. She was excited about being a grandmother. She was congratulating us. Her attitude did a complete turn, and I grudgingly allowed her to visit. We're all thinking the same thing right now. Crap. If she has a pivot like this, that means that something's about to go real frickin' wrong. When it was time to give birth to my son, she wanted to see my son being born, but I refused. Here we go. That's when her ugly side reared its ugly head again. And she caused a scene and was thrown out. What, at the hospital? Ooh. I refused to let her visit us at home. My husband agreed, but she rang crying and apologizing. She said that she was just overwhelmed about being a grandmother and her emotions got the better of her. Against my better judgment, I relented and said, okay. When she first held him, she looked at me and said that he was beautiful. I went into the kitchen to get us a drink, and then I could hear my husband telling her to get out. I went back in, and she started yelling that he needed to get the baby tested because he doesn't look like anyone in their family. He kicked her out.
Damn!
One thing I have to say is that, for better or worse, Mom will always be there. However, I don't agree with her being so invasive and trying to ruin her son's relationship. The son seems to be a manipulable man because just because your mother tells you to do a DNA test doesn't mean you should make a big fuss about it. Remember, she was the woman who saw you as a child. She, more than anyone, knows how her baby was, so she will check that grandson from head to toe. But let's continue with the story and see what happened.
Okay, this is like right after being born, right after this human baby was shoved out of, a hole and its skull collapsed in so that it could make it through that hole. And she's like, oh, it doesn't look anything like you. She took to social media and told everybody that I cheated on my husband and that my husband needs to get a DNA test to prove he was the dad. She got a lot of attention for that, so I made my own post and said, I'll get a test when she gets a test for her son. That just made everything worse. She rang up my husband telling him to take it down. He just hung up on her. Everyone is divided and questioning my husband's paternity since she had such a strong reaction to it. Now even my husband is starting to wonder and making me feel like I went too far. I'm wondering if I'm the asshole for saying that. Hold on. What? Okay. Hold. Obviously, mother-in-law is a terrible person. Obviously. But we got a new problem now. OP was mirroring, right? So mother-in-law takes a swing and does something really stupid, and OP's like, okay, cool. I'll do the exact same thing that you did, and then you can't say shit about it. You can't victimize yourself whenever I hit you back, right? No, she does. But also, the reaction that she had to it makes OP's husband think maybe he's really not her son after all. No matter what, this is not your fault, OP. It is not your fault. If you just happened to say the same thing that she said and it happened to be true or cause more questions, that is not your fault. She shouldn't have gone there if she didn't want to talk about the subject, right? And maybe this is like a deep-rooted insecurity thing that she has. Maybe the guilt made her project this whole scenario onto you. Maybe the guilt made her see what she saw when she was holding that brand new baby and was like, oh, it looks nothing like you. It could be just guilt that caused a projection here. And that could be what led to this whole thing. No matter what, it's not.
Gotcha, bitch!
Let's make it clear. The mother overstepped her boundaries. But going against the head of the family was not a good move for the wife because she is in a very bad position. She is the one who just gave birth, and the mother-in-law is the father's mother, who never has 100% certainty that the child is his. She doesn't see a resemblance between her grandson and her son. By requesting the test and you refusing, it shows that she might be right. Of course, it would make your husband doubt, not out of distrust, but because every man has that doubt. But for the wife to counterattack publicly, of course, it's going to divide the family. If you had just done the test and it showed that the child is your husband's, and then publicly demanded that your mother-in-law take a test as you did, I think you would have won that battle. You would have put the mother-in-law in a bad spot. But let's continue.
But it's not your fault, though. Yeah, shit got more complicated. If that is the case, it would have come out eventually. She could also just be throwing a tantrum to throw a tantrum because she's victimizing herself here. And she's like, I'm not going to dignify that with a response at all. It could just as likely be that. So you don't know that this is that much more complicated. It's just her crying for attention, but somebody being ignorant enough to hold a baby for 30 seconds and in that amount of time make the determination that it's not your child without there being some kind of clear indication here, and then take to social media and claim that you cheated is just wild. Is it not? It is just wild. So here's a question for you. And Unperfect Mom, I'm going off of your statement here. I've always loved matching energy. When someone is being an irate astronaut to you, do you believe in matching energy? When somebody's being shitty to you, do you believe in matching energy? Is that the approach that you take, or do you take an independent approach? Obviously, people respond to matching energy because you're speaking their language at that point. All right, we got a lot of people who say, yeah. There's a quote that says, if you hit me first, don't be mad when I hit you back harder. And I love that quote. It's obviously not always the way to go. I think it depends on what you're hoping to achieve. And maybe that's where I'm at. The whole matching energy thing to me is dangerous because it's not necessarily going to get you what you want. It depends on what your goal is. And I would rather strategize independently. And I guess you could still do that and match energy through communication so that they actually hear you. But I guess in this case, communication wasn't to each other. Well, it was, but it's the game that we see a lot of people do nowadays. And it was taking to social media to cowardly put out there into the world what she wouldn't say to OP face to face. And maybe she would have if hubby hadn't kicked her out. But we see a lot of people doing this, and they just talk shit with a social post about someone rather than telling that person what they actually think. So OP went and did the same thing. Ultimately, this all comes back down to, hubby, you're going to have to be willing to go no contact with your mom for life because she's toxic. She's already inflicted too much damage onto your partner and your relationship. There is a high likelihood here that she's going to inflict trauma upon your child. Seems like a pretty easy choice.
I don't like that advice. Here's the thing. Before going to war, you first make sure you're not in the weakest position because you would lose the fight. This woman is in the weakest position right now. If she wants to counterattack, the first thing to do is to take the DNA test. If it comes back positive, she gains an ally in her husband. Now, with this proof, she can manipulate her husband, telling him that if he doesn't firmly control his mother, she will divorce him. This will make the man, with the proof in hand, put his mother in her place. He would call the family to clear everything up. All the crap his mother threw on her would come back to her. Now, she could distance the mother-in-law for the offense and could even prevent her from seeing the grandson. She would be at peace. As for the husband, he needs to learn to put on his pants because he doesn't seem to be able to be firm with his mother. Once this is resolved, I would advise him to become a man, putting both of them in their place, so this doesn't happen again in a different way in the future.
Can somebody please explain to me why dating in your 40s sucks so much? Because, I've been divorced for a number of years now, and I have 5 kids, and life is crazy, and, I've spent a lot of time taking care of myself, taking care of my kids, working hard, putting myself through school, da-da-da-da-da. And then, I finally get to a place where I feel like I'm ready to add a person into my life, right? So I start dating, and it's either guys who just want to have sex with me, or you start talking to them and then they ghost you, or 500 like you, but none of them even send a message. And it's just ridiculous. And the reality is, I don't go to the bar. I don't drink. And I don't want anything to do with that scene. So really and truly, how do you meet people now? Like, this world is so different than it was when I was in my 20s and before I got married and all that stuff. And now it's like people are really far away, or you chat for a little while and then it stops. And I'm just curious if there's anything out there that's just marriage out of convenience, 2 people who want a partner and to not live alone anymore, to help pay the bills and all that stuff. So, if you're willing to do a marriage out of convenience, let me know, because maybe I'm at that point where I'm not an ugly woman. I am not a difficult person to get along with. I am positive and upbeat and happy. I love my children so much. But I also want a companion. I want a best friend. I want somebody to dance with me in the kitchen. I want somebody to walk by and slap my ass as I'm cooking dinner. I want somebody to help and to hold me. Are there men like that out there anymore? Because I feel like there's not. I'm really quite disappointed. So anyway, I just figured I'd put my little 2 cents out there that dating in your 40s sucks. And I wish it wasn't this way. So anyway, have a blessed day.
Woman, you have the triple whammy. 5 kids, divorced, and 40 years old. You want a man to pick up the tab? Honestly, the only thing I recognize is that you're very optimistic because you're navigating the dating world on hard mode. It's one thing to date a woman in her 30s with 1 child. It's another to date a woman in her 40s with 5 kids. What man in his right mind would take on that burden? Even simps aren't that stupid, and a single dad wouldn't gamble on it. I don't understand these women today. How do you get divorced with 5 kids? What's funny is that she's out here making demands about how she wants a relationship. Well, whoever wants a marriage of convenience can send in their application because it requires a beta provider. Seriously, you can't make this stuff up.
Paternity fraud is when a man is incorrectly identified as the biological father of a child. If you're not married and you have doubts that you're the father, make sure you do this. Do not sign the voluntary declaration of paternity. Make sure you're not on the birth certificate. If the mother files and serves a petition, request a DNA test. If you are married and you have doubts, you have 2 years from the birth of the baby to challenge paternity. After that, you'll be deemed the legal father of the child, even if DNA tests reveal later that you're not the biological father.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we will look at 2 interesting paternity fraud stories. A man who had even become a grandfather finds out that none of his children are his own. A woman with an ancestry DNA test discovers that her great-grandmother cheated on her great-grandfather with a paternity fraud. We want to invite you to smash that like button and help us reach 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year to get our first plaque. That's the only support we ask from you, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement. Leave us your experience in the comments for any man who might need it. And without further introduction, let's get started.
I have been married for 51 years. Got 2 sons. Needed to take a test. Found out something interesting. They ain't my kids. They're somebody else's. I do wish I knew who the real fathers were. And they ain't the same. She was bopping a couple of different guys. I stayed with her for the sake of the children. I've been in court thousands of times in paternity suits, and 4 out of 5 times, guy says he ain't the daddy, he's right. I'll go home, start drafting up some divorce papers. I'll need to go get your own paternity test.
And here we go again. But this time it's coming from a judge that's been married for over half a century. He needed his sons to get tested for a kidney transplant. And in doing so, he discovered that both of his sons do not belong to him. Both of them. Now, look at the age of this man. He said he's going to go home and draw up divorce papers. Imagine getting divorced at that age because you find out the children that you've loved for 40 plus years are not yours. And this man also has grandchildren and great-grandchildren. None of them share his DNA. So imagine becoming 70 plus years old and you think you have a whole legacy built of all these people that are now here on earth because of your DNA. But it's not. And he even alluded to the fact that both children might have also come from different men. Imagine that. In his video, he also stated that he presided over thousands of paternity cases, and that in 4 out of 5 of those cases, that the father was not the biological father. 4 out of 5. We need more laws protecting men from this maneuver. This is fraud and should be taken quite seriously. Much like the cuckoo bird that lays an egg in another bird's nest in order to dupe the host into raising the hatchling as their own. Far too many women are doing the same to men. I'm going to say it again. Get your kids swapped, guys. As this judge said in the longer version of his video, you cannot go by looks. If this judge had found out earlier, he could have left her, remarried, had his own children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and built an authentic legacy. I doubt for a moment this judge would have ever thought he would be on this side of the fence. Duplicitous behavior is rampant, and you don't want to become the victim of that.
Damn!
You can deceive a man. You can take everything from him in a divorce. You can falsely accuse him of abuse. You can steal his money. You can date a friend. And from all that, a man can recover. But telling a man that a child is his, making him raise another man's seed thinking it's his own, then finding out after years of raising that child that it isn't his, that's a wound that never stops hurting. That destroys a man physically and mentally. This judge is destroyed. 51 years living with a man, and you couldn't give him a single child. The 2 children of that man, who has an entire family built, where only that woman used him. This video is longer because over the years he saw that those children didn't resemble him in any way. They were losers compared to what he wanted them to be because DNA doesn't lie. There's a saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree because none of the children inherited his drive to succeed. His hobbies, nothing. He noticed they didn't resemble his lineage. But he trusted, sure with the thought every man has, she loves me, she would never do something like that to me. For things like this, I say, do the test. Tell a woman before marrying her that you will do it with her permission or without it, but the DNA test will be done. Set a precedent because at least this way she will be afraid to cheat on you, because you made your conditions clear. She knows it wouldn't work on you. Stop thinking she wouldn't do that to me because every man it happened to thought the same thing.
I think I discovered a scandal in my family's DNA. Using Ancestry DNA, I did my mom and me and my grandmother. And my grandmother passed away 3 years ago, but I had done this DNA test on her 7 years ago. And I was able to match it up on the Ancestry website, like most people in our family. But then there was a whole bunch of people that just didn't match up anywhere. And according to Ancestry, they all came through my grandmother somehow. And so I started looking at the matches that were like really close to her. And one of them that I found, it showed that it should have been a niece of hers, but she doesn't have any siblings. So there was either an error in the test or something weird's going on. So I started looking at who these people were and looking at their family trees and their census records and everything. And I was seeing that they lived relatively close to where my family's from. So I started narrowing in on the time frame of the 1930s and found that not only did they live in the same city, but they actually lived on the same block as my grandmother.
A great-grandmother who cheats. Nothing new under the sun. Do you know why the paternity fraud rate is at 32% today? Because 1 in 3 men who take the test comes out negative. 1 in 3. That means there must be almost 10 million men in this country raising children that aren't theirs. So I wonder, why don't men do DNA tests? Some don't want to know the truth. They prefer to raise Chad's seed. Others don't want to lose their woman. Others because the woman threatens them and acts offended. Something I don't understand because if you know the child is yours, why shouldn't the man know too? Because the only sure thing when a child is born is who the mother is, nothing else. But let's continue with the story. It's quite good.
So my DNA, my mom's DNA, and my grandmother's DNA clearly matches the descendants of this family that lived next to my grandmother when she was born in 1930. When she was born, she was an only child, and her mother was 41 and her father was 46. They had been married for over 20 years and had not had a child. And now all of a sudden, this miracle baby in their early 40s. But also, we're DNA related to the neighbors who my great-grandmother supposedly worked for, nannied for, or something like that. Was this a situation where the neighbor forced himself on my great-grandmother? Were they having some kind of consensual affair when she got pregnant? Did my great grandfather realize any of this was going on? Was he surprised that his wife all of a sudden got married after she started spending more time with the neighbor? Some of this stuff we're never going to be able to know, but I did find out a couple of other details that make a plot twist even more interesting.
Oh my God!
I like to see how women twist the story to always make the woman the victim. The neighbor forced my great-grandmother into a relationship because it couldn't be that your great-grandmother, desperate not to have a child with her husband, went looking for her boss's seed. Since she worked taking care of his children, seeing that they were healthy children, and that it was good quality seed, what better than to go for it? But of course, brothers, she was forced. In the past, this was more common than ever, which is why these ancestry tests have uncovered things and destroyed marriages. Women have been doing this for many years. Many times, they don't even know who they got pregnant by because they go out with so many men that they don't realize. Others get pregnant on their girls' nights out and then pin it on their boyfriend or husband. That's why if you've been trying with a woman for more than 5 to 7 years and nothing ever happens, go to the doctor first and see how you are. If everything is fine and the woman gets pregnant, do your test as usual. But if there's a problem and the woman gets pregnant afterward, you understand what's happening, right? Let's look at the other part.
So I found these DNA matches on Ancestry that pretty much proved to me that my grandmother's neighbor was actually her biological father and not the father listed on her birth certificate and who she always thought was her father. So what happened to the biological father? That's where things get even more strange. Within a year of my grandmother being born, he up and leaves his entire family in Pittsburgh. Doesn't just leave his wife and his children, moves from Pittsburgh to Florida and changes his name and eventually dies in Florida with his name changed. Now, I was able to confirm all of this not only through records that I found on Ancestry, but I reached out to somebody else who's around my grandmother's age, who has also done a lot of genealogy in our family, and he helped me put together the pieces and said that he agrees that this is what happened. However, I've told all my family and other members of his family, and no one wants to think that it's true. What do you think?
Oh God, please, no! No! No!
I think it's true. The husband of that woman knew, because after 20 years of marriage without having children, he saw this girl and they said she was his. He knew she wasn't his, but he couldn't have children. That's why he moved. That's why he changed his name so he wouldn't be found. And there are men like that, beta providers who are willing to raise Chad's seed. Even if they are deceived, they forgive and move on because abandoning your family was frowned upon back then. There were no DNA tests to show if the child was yours or not. You were trapped, especially after being married for so many years. I would like to read in the comments what you would have done.
I think it's funny how a lot of women will say that men lie and men are pieces of shit, but why is it that 26.9% of all women have lied about paternity? Meaning they've actually pinned a child on a father that isn't theirs. And most of them have admitted doing this because they pick the more suitable father out of the men that they've been cheating with. Additionally, another study was done in the UK that 1 in 10 women don't know who the biological father is and they just take a guess. These men actually grow bonds with their children and raise them and fall in love with them, and then they ultimately find out that the child is not theirs. How sick do you have to be to do that to a man, but also to do that to your own child? It's absolutely diabolical. And the worst part about it is there's little to no consequences to the women that do this. In fact, they might get a slap on the wrist or have to pay a fine, and that's only if the father wants to sue, and most of the men don't go after her or don't do anything because they don't have the financial means to fight it in court. I mean, do what you will with this information. Okay, bye.
Totally. If the woman doesn't care at all about hurting you, why should it hurt you to want to confirm that the child is yours? If your child is born, don't sign that birth certificate without your DNA test, because everyone will say the child looks like you or a relative. It's better if they actually resemble you in blood. That's the true resemblance. Men, set a precedent. Before marrying or being with a woman to have children, make it clear that you will do a DNA test on all your children, with or without her approval. That way, she won't be able to deceive you easily because she knows it won't work with you. Don't care if she comes with the "you don't trust me" blackmail. This isn't a matter of trust. It's a matter of protecting my interests and my future. No one puts their future in someone else's hands. Do you know what is spent on a child? It's not just 18 years of child support. It's also expenses and gifts, everything they ask for. Sometimes university tuition, leaving an inheritance, helping them through all their life processes, plus all the emotional investment. So that one day they tell you that you did all that for another man's seed? Look at the judge. He sees this every day. Look how the one who lives seeing these cases thought it would never happen to him. It did. 51 years with grandchildren. That's criminal, and nothing happens to the mother. Don't fall into this trap. DNA test.
Everything people are saying.
Oh my god, this, all this. Put on a dress, go into the supermarket and ask a guy to like reach an item on like a high shelf. You will see how happy it makes them to serve you in your feminine energy.
Welcome to the wall. In today's video, we will see various women giving the most toxic advice on how to hurt a partner. We will also see a single woman belittling the wives of 3 of her ex-boyfriends, calling them conformist women for marrying them. We want to invite you to smash that like button and help us reach 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year and get our first plaque. That's the only support we ask for, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement and share your experience in the comments for any man who needs it. Without further ado, let's get started.
Okay, this video is dangerous, but this is how to get revenge on a guy, or really just anyone. And it's really fucking petty, but they won't know it's you. So who cares? This is gonna be part 1, so follow and let me know if you want a part 2. Also, a disclaimer, if you've ever been associated with me and you've ever received one of these, it wasn't me. It's just a crazy, crazy fucking coincidence. I would never. Anyways, your new best friend, tellyourpartner.org. Basically, what this site will do is it will anonymously tell whoever you want that one of their past partners has tested positive for the STD of your choice. The site is meant to genuinely send partners like anonymous texts, like to let them know that you have something. Like, it's like actually meant for that. So like the text is believable. Yeah, to the person that received this from me and the other girl that you also, yeah, we're not gonna get into that, but we mutually decided to do it. Surprise! You don't have chlamydia, but you're still gross. Anyways, use this wisely, only to people that actually fucking deserve it, which is a lot of men. Anyways, like for a part 2. And follow for more and follow my Instagram. Love you.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Every day this gets worse. I don't know if it's that this wave of modern women wants to destroy men, or if they are just coming together so that men have more and more reasons to stop dating them. Do you know how much it can ruin a man's life to tell his partner or ex-partner that he gave her an STD? Because let me tell you something, if she was the one who gave it to him, she can blame him entirely through this medium. I see many women in the comments of this video, which has 6 million views, wanting to use that to supposedly scare an ex-partner, or others sending it to some friends as a joke. What part of telling someone they have a sexually transmitted disease is a joke? Where's the humor in that? Not knowing the person's mood or mental health, I feel like these women are losing critical thinking every day, thinking this isn't right. And this girl is even worse for promoting it.
Okay, this is how to get revenge on a guy or anyone, part 2. Sorry for the long fucking break. I was just in Hawaii, have a lot of story times with that one. That'll be later. We had this game that we made beforehand called Monopoly. Like Monopoly, because I had mono. It was like a checklist of things we had to do. Not to brag, but I won. So it was definitely interesting, but let's get into the video. If you haven't seen part 1, go to that one too. But let's get started. Honestly, I feel like this one's even more fucking petty than the last one, because there's no way that they can really like stop it from happening. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go to Craigslist. You're gonna put out an ad for like an iPhone 13, something like really fucking nice, for the price of like $20. It's gonna be like a hot commodity. And for source of contact, you're gonna put their phone number. This man is gonna get hundreds of texts asking for this thing. And the beauty in this is there's so many different numbers that he can't just block one of them, because they will keep on coming and he will not know where from. It's like harmless, but it's gonna get really fucking annoying really fucking fast. Oops. In the last video, everyone's like, let God take revenge, forgiveness, whatever. God isn't working fast enough here. Just giving him a helping hand, because some people really fucking deserve it. Anyways, that's it. Follow for more and follow my Instagram too. I love you so much. Bye.
Then they wonder, when something bad happens to them, why is this happening to me? Women never stop giving themselves toxic advice that only makes their situation worse. Just hearing God doesn't take revenge too quickly makes it clear what they wish for their ex-partners. But these are the videos modern women watch. videos on how to ruin a man, videos on how to be the worst woman to a man. Instead of accepting responsibility for the relationship they chose to be in, the best thing to do is ruin the man who decided to leave them for being toxic. That's why more men today decide to be alone, because they go through relationships with women like this who only bring toxicity to the relationship. And the worst part is that it's such a strong poison that even after leaving them, they keep messing with your patience or looking for ways to bring chaos to your life. It's because of things like this that I don't believe women who play the victim and then accuse the man of being an abuser, making videos crying crocodile tears, just to make angry people ruin the life of an innocent man. Today, they are being worse than men and trying more and more to ruin their reputation just because he decided to leave a toxic relationship.
Oh, how I wish I could reach this level of delusion. However, no, men do not marry inconvenient women. Men love chasing inconvenient women for validation. But they quickly grow tired of this, and then they will settle for the girl who is just like easygoing and never asks them to do anything. And let me tell you how I know this. I have very bare minimum standards for men that would place me into this category of inconvenient women. And boys love to chase after me. And some of them last a week, some of them last a month. But in the end, they always burn out. Like, for the longest time, I felt like Dane Cook in that movie Good Luck Chuck, because every boy I dated would go on to date the next year for like months or even years. This last year, 3 of my exes got engaged, which is wild. Like, sometimes I think I might have even just scared them into realizing what standards could be held for them, so the next girl, they're like, I gotta lock this down. And here's the thing, I used to be like on somewhat mutual terms with a couple of my exes. That's a long story, but I got to know their next girlfriend, and immediately when I met them, a flip switched in my mind and it all made sense. Watching them interact, I'm like, oh, she just lets this man kind of walk all over her. She just has different standards than I do. Such as my one ex, you could call him, things didn't work out because I felt like I was always asking him to step up and do more and think about me when you're doing things. Like, he was just a very selfish man, classic only child trope. And things at one point got very messy, and I later became friends with the girl he dated after me for several years, and she told me the whole story about how the whole time he was just so lazy and he treated her terribly. Things were a little scary sometimes. There's a lot of lying and cheating and that behavior, and I realized I dodged a massive bullet there. But yeah, like, she was just the one who was willing to put up with all that and stay with him. And they got back together since that, which is a whole thing. But I do believe that someday they will get married. But I truly do believe that those two are made for each other, because that's a story for another day. She did some really terrible things to me as well, but like, she just enables his behavior. She's the more convenient choice, and men essentially marry the convenient woman. They love to chase the inconvenient woman, right? Because it brings them all this validation. But then one of two things happen. They either burn out because they just like can't meet the standards that are, again, like bare minimum things, or two, the moment you like kind of let your guard down, they're bored, they're uninterested, they need to go chase something new and more inconvenient. And that's why I personally have a rule when I'm seriously dating, that I don't even consider sleeping with a man until like I really, really, really know him. Because honestly, most of them don't make it to that point. But that's just a personal choice, and it works really well for me, not shaming anyone who does anything differently. But it is true that a lot of times these boys that are just in it for the validation chase, once you sleep with them, they will just be completely gone. Because they felt like they won, like they received the validation. It's a strange thing for sure.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no.
No, that's not it. There are simply women who bring a wifely feminine energy with whom you can build a home, and others who are only good for pleasure but bring a bossy energy and are not good for the home. You seem to fall into the second category, a strong and independent woman who doesn't bring the energy of being a wife who takes care of her man. That's why you try to subtly insult the women your exes are with, calling them low value compared to you. But here's the thing. 3 men were with you, saw everything you had to offer, and decided to leave you. Nobody leaves a Ferrari for a Corolla, but you do leave a Corolla for a Ferrari. You understand what I'm saying? Women often have high standards that they themselves can't meet. Your exes saw that being with you would be a constant complaint and decided to leave you. Instead of belittling the new girlfriend, you should reflect on yourself, because if more than 3 partners have left you and then married the next one, you must have some problem that prevents you from keeping a man. As I said, there are women with whom you can build and progress a home. And there are others who never get past being the eternal girlfriend because they always end up being left for not bringing the feminine energy a man wants to build a home with.
Okay. I am single. It is the holidays. No one has asked me to go to a pumpkin patch. No one has asked me to go see a scary movie. No one's asked me to go to a haunted house. I have no hopes. I just want to be loved. And I want to show someone love and unconditional love. I don't even like scary movies. But it would at least be nice to know that someone wants to take me so they can protect me. It's fine.
In short, the product is on sale, in case anyone wants to buy it. If there's a Chad here, you know where to go. She wants to be invited home. Brothers, the wall doesn't forgive.
The more he calls, the more he texts, the less he's into you. He messages you good morning every single day. He calls you once he gets home at 3 a.m. after he spent hours at the pub with the boys because he misses you so much. He keeps calling and texting you, checking in throughout your day, how you going. You spend hours on FaceTime before you eventually fall asleep together on the phone. But not ever has this man officially taken you out on a date. Neither did he give you gifts, flowers, jewelry, and actually asked you to be his girlfriend. Stop thinking just because he's calling and texting that he's into you. That's a lie. What he's doing is keeping his options warm, entertaining you, while he's keeping an eye out for his dream girl. Stop waiting on the sideline and stop entertaining men who don't want to be with you.
Oh my God!
This woman deserves a whole video because she is super toxic. But I won't deny that Chads love to love bomb women, and women also like to do this with men, turning them into their shoulder to cry on or the guy in the friend zone. Be careful with this, brothers. If a woman isn't clear with you, discard her. Anything that isn't a clear yes is a no, because there's no middle ground. I'll also say that disinterest is boring. So, take this advice with a grain of salt because you can send messages and try to win the girl over. But I don't advise telling her everything about yourself. You have to invite her out and leave some mystery. Don't tire her out by writing every day. Remember, the one who shows too much hunger doesn't eat. But this woman gives this advice in a toxic way, telling women to act disinterested to make it harder for men. But all this does is push men further away because there's a new trend of women trying to be toxic, thinking that the worse they treat a man, the more he will fall in love. But all it does is leave them, and the one giving the advice, lonelier than the sun at noon because the wall doesn't forgive.
Women are never happy in their relationships and marriages if they end up chasing their man. That's why you want to become the black cat and he's the loyal golden retriever chasing you. Black cat, golden retriever. Black cat, golden retriever. Black cat, her golden retriever. Black cat, golden retriever. She's a black cat, her golden retriever. Drake was the black cat, that's why it didn't work. The example of you being the golden retriever and he's the black cat, it doesn't work.
Welcome to the wall. In today's video, we will look at an analogy invented by a woman, where she tells us that a woman is either a black cat or a golden retriever. We will explain what these are, show examples of couples she qualifies on both sides, and tell you why this is just manipulation towards men. We want to invite you to smash that like button and help us reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so we can get our first plaque. That's the only contribution we ask from you, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement, leave us your experience in the comments for any man who needs it, and without further ado, let's get started.
Black cat is independent. Golden retriever is dependent. Let's use Vanessa Hudgens as a little example. Even though she seems like the ultimate black cat, the ultimate femme fatale, like dark femininity, even in the way she looks, in her past relationship, she was a golden retriever. That's why it didn't work. If you're with the wrong man and it's the wrong dynamic between you two, you end up being the loyal golden retriever that's getting played. You can see it even in the body language. Look how she's clinging onto him. She's so smiley. She's so happy. When you become so loyal, so naive, so reassuring, so loving, you're transforming your man into into the black cat. Look at him. Look at the confidence on him. Golden retriever, black cat, bothered, unbothered, dependent, independent. They looked happy, but guess what? She probably didn't know when this photo was taken that he's gonna leave her for somebody 10 years younger in a few weeks. This is exhibit B. He is the golden retriever for her. This man has an energy or something about him that lets her rest. This queen can finally rest in her dark femininity. She can finally become the unbothered, independent queen, and he lets her shine. He is not threatened by her. He doesn't need to compete with her. He doesn't feel bothered. He doesn't feel threatened. He can let her shine. And he turns into the loyal golden retriever that just adores and worships the ground she's walking on. Man needs to be the loyal golden retriever that is loving and caring and compassionate and reassuring, doesn't feel threatened by their wife, which is the powerful, independent, mysterious, sexy, unbothered queen, the black cat. Now these two, she is also the black cat, and she turned him into the golden retriever. You can even see this on the dynamic, the way they're standing. Said it before and I say it again. Men love bitches. They get bored or think they're deserving of better if you're too reassuring and too kind. Vanessa Hudgens was waiting, I don't know, I think 10 years for a commitment or ring or something from this man, and he couldn't get his shit together, and he proposed within 1 month to Kaya Gerber. I don't know them personally, but I understand psychology and relationship dynamics. And something about this woman was intriguing to him. Even though he had so much success and fame and women literally waiting for him, even though he had so much fame, money, success, attention on him because of Elvis, he chose her. She made him feel as if she wouldn't need him in his life to be complete or happy. That made her a mental challenge to him. So this man had options all around the world. People were crushing on him everywhere because of his success and fame, because of his movies. And this woman was like, okay, well, let's see where this is going, because I've dated other successful men in the past. I really believe that her energy, her mindset, the unattainable, untouchable black cat energy lured him in. If a man gets the feeling of a woman that she's hot and cold, that's what a man makes him commit to her. That's why he popped the question after 2 months of dating her. Not because she's so loyal and so kind and so reassuring. It's because she's mysterious, and she told him through her attitude, through her energy, through her actions. I mean, I don't know them personally, but she must have communicated something that she told him, I will live happily ever after with you or without you in my life. So if you want me in it, pick a choice.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
This woman has a whole analogy about being a black cat and a golden retriever. I don't agree with her, but I somewhat understand what she's saying because, from a man's point of view, a man is happier and gets more women when he has more options. The more women you date, the more dependent the women you get become on you, and the more they fall in love. I understand that. Now, she says that men fall in love with the most indifferent woman, that showing too much affection makes a man bored. I don't think that's true. What happens is that there are men who are chads, very masculine men with many options, and there are beta providers, men with fewer options who are more passive. The same goes for women. A more submissive woman tends to be more dependent on the man, which makes the chad manipulate her and do what he wants. A woman with high energy and very high self-esteem tends to seek a more docile man where she has total control. The problem is that these women never end up being tolerated by anyone, and the men who end up with them suffer a lot of cheating and mistreatment because they have low self-esteem and little masculine energy. She will now explain her entire analogy in the next video and also show some couples. I want you to pay close attention to her examples.
This is how you're going to become the black cat. Have men bend over backwards for you. Let them eat out of the palm of your hand. Be the main character of the story and make heads turn wherever you go. Number one, and this is the most important part. This is where you lay the foundation, all right? Lean in, listen to me. You have to be inconvenient. You have to be bitchy. You have to have standards and certain expectations. The higher the expectations and the more unrealistic, the better. Example, let's say you've been seeing each other for a little while and you know there's connection building and he's calling you and he wants to take you out for a coffee date. Be smart, play dumb, and simply tell him, oh, I thought we were going on a date. He's gonna be like, well, yeah, I want to take you out for a coffee. That's when you become inconvenient. Oh, I don't go for coffee dates. By his reaction, you're gonna know if this is a weak, feminine, insecure man that wants to compete with you on a spot on the pedestal, or if he can let you stay there and let you shine. Because option number one, he's gonna be okay with you being inconvenient because he's trying to date you. You are the queen, you are the prize, you are the woman on the pedestal. So if he then feels that you declining a coffee date is too inconvenient, too hard for him to handle, there's your answer. Not the right man for you anyway. You cut your losses early. A true masculine man will not ever look at you as inconvenient. He will say, oh, no worries, I'm sorry about that. Which restaurant would you like to be taken to? Or let's say, using the example of the law of assumption, it's Friday evening, you know you're going to go for a date night, but you also know your man hasn't really made any plans yet. He's just telling you to come over to his place, ... Instead of complaining about it, instead of being angry about it, be all dressed up, put on your makeup, put on your perfume, wear the most beautiful clothes, wear high heels, sit in the Uber on the way to his place, and send him a message or call him and tell him, I am so excited for this beautiful restaurant you're going to take me. I'm so appreciative of this because we haven't done this in a while. I'm so grateful for you taking the time booking this beautiful restaurant for us. You know damn well that he didn't book anything, but you're not losing your cool, you're not losing your spot on the pedestal, you remain the prize, and you walking into his house looking like the prize, also after you made that law of assumption phone call, he's going to feel like an idiot. He's not going to feel man enough for you. Now he's going to compete with his own ego to prove to you that he is worthy of being by your side, that he's all of a sudden going to dress up and takes you out to the beautiful 5-star restaurant as you deserve. Again, if he doesn't, that's your answer. If you want to become the black cat and stay the black cat, remember step number 1, become inconvenient. Be bitchy. Be annoying. Be complicated and unpredictable. And let them figure you out. You have all the power. They want to date you. They want to see you. They want to be with you. They want to keep you happy in their relationship. It's their job. So let them work for it. Right? Follow and comment for a part 2, and I'll give you a step-by-step list on how to become and stay in your black cat energy.
God, please, no! 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 No!
Pure and simple manipulation. Let me tell you something. The first date should always be a coffee because it's about getting to know each other. After a relationship develops, it's up to you to make an effort if you feel like it. Now, my question is, why don't those tips work for her? Because what she says is to be a prize as a woman, but she doesn't apply it in her own life. But going to her message, I'd say that men operate on goals and solving problems. A woman who plays hard to get can capture a man's attention, but it won't work with everyone. A man with low self-esteem will do anything for a woman, even kiss the ground she walks on. But a man who understands his value and has faith in himself won't be a doormat. When a woman tries to manipulate him, he discards her. I'm aware that we desire more what we don't have, which is why I say it can work at the beginning because we strive for certain women. But if the manipulation continues in an established relationship, it will bore the man. Unless he's a masochist or a simp, he won't tolerate mistreatment from a woman. That's why I want you to see her example couples.
If you want to be happy in your long-term commitment, relationship, or marriage, you need to embody the black cat, and he needs to be the golden retriever. The loyal, loving golden retriever that is good-looking, charming, cute, and would never abandon you. If you want a man like this, you have to be the black cat. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to show you examples right now. Golden retriever, black cat. That's why it works. Golden retriever, she's the black cat. Black cat, golden retriever. She's the black cat, he's the golden retriever. It works. If you still don't believe me, now I'm going to show you examples of what happens when you're the golden retriever in the relationship and he is the black cat. He's the black cat, she is the golden retriever. That's why it didn't work. She's the golden retriever, he's the black cat. She's the golden retriever, he's the black cat.
Oh my God!
Angelina Jolie, a woman who sent Brad to therapy, is one of her examples. Today, their kids are super woke. One of them even wants to remove her father's last name. She made him raise another man's seed. And this poor man ended up without the love of any of his children and became an alcoholic. Fantastic. Then there's Logan Paul and his woman who cheated on him, and he stayed with her. Will Smith, the biggest simp, stays with the woman who humiliated and cheated on him with a friend of their son, making him cry on TV. As I said, these types of men only suffered with women who have more masculine energy than their men. That's why all her examples are of toxic relationships. Take Justin, who was a simp with Selena. He understands that being masculine is the way to a healthy relationship. When a man is the feminine one in the relationship, he ends up being humiliated, mistreated, and above all, cheated on, becoming a laughingstock. I'm not saying you have to treat your woman badly. I'm saying that a woman with high masculine energy will never admire you and will want to manipulate you, just like those women did with those simps. If women aspire to be a black cat, all I can say is they should be prepared to have toxic relationships.
The woman that stays at his after the dinner party and cleans up and does the dishes and puts everything away and brings out the garbage is the woman he would cheat on and take advantage of. Or she's going to stay in the friend zone. She's a golden retriever. The woman who leaves the party early or maybe even cancels last minute, that's a black cat, and that's the woman he's gonna marry. Men do not appreciate women for women doing things for them. So the woman that stays back, the golden retriever cleaning everything, she thinks, oh my God, he's gonna see my value and everything I bring to the table. I'm doing so much for him. Oh my God, he's gonna fall in love with me because he sees I'm like the amazing wannabe wife. I'm like this amazing woman for his future children. No. Men don't think that way. Women think that way. Men think, she's so needy and desperate, she's staying till 4 a.m. Everybody's already left. She just wants my recognition. She wants my time and my validation and my love and wants to hop into bed with me. How needy, how desperate. I want to get her out of this place. The woman that maybe canceled last minute or left home early is the mysterious woman that mentally stimulates him because he thinks, why is this woman so unbothered that she left my amazing dinner party? Remember, men have a huge ego. My amazing party, the place to be. How come she has something else to do that is more important to her? How come she had to leave early? What else is she up to? Is there another man in her life? How come she canceled? What could potentially be better than my dinner party at my place? I'm that man. So all of a sudden she triggered his ego. A woman that can trigger a man's ego has emotional leverage over him. Why? Because she becomes a mental challenge. She stimulates them mentally. The more a man thinks about a woman and is mentally stimulated by her, the more he wants to attain her, the more he wants to chase and pursue her. Because it is interesting to him because she's on a pedestal. She made very clear throughout her actions, not verbally, but throughout her actions. I'm unattainable. I have my own life. I don't need you to compliment me. The golden retriever, the woman that stayed back and cleaned everything, basically communicated, again, not verbally, but in her actions, I need you. I want you to need me, and this is why I'm overcompensating and doing all these things, like cleaning, bring the garbage out, literally doing all these dishes, helping him pack up after the dinner party, so I can be valued and loved. That is desperate, needy, and clown shit. Let me tell you a secret. Sometimes these type of women actually end up in a relationship with their man, usually because that man is very insecure and thinks, oh my God, I've got a free personal assistant. But these type of women will stay the golden retriever throughout the entire relationship. They will get cheated on, they will be taken advantage of, and they will be walked all over. So ladies, take a pick. Become the black cat, stay unbothered.
Fuck up, you crazy bitch whore!
The definition of all this is a woman with masculine polarity. A woman who has control, goes out whenever she wants, does whatever she wants, is very independent, and makes it clear that if you leave, she doesn't care. This, without a doubt, is the definition of a classic Chad. A man who brings nothing to the table but his seed. But I'll be fair. A man's job is to conquer the woman he wants by his side, and a woman's job is to maintain her man's interest. This is clear. Even though we like women to treat us well, we also like them to take care of themselves. A woman who is always at home and never makes herself attractive for her man doesn't keep her husband's interest. I'll tell you that every man likes having an attractive woman. The same goes for men who don't exercise and spend all their time playing video games. But from this, to make a woman never do anything for a man, always wanting money for her expenses, treating the man like trash, being ungrateful, and seeing everything as the bare minimum, let me tell you, that type of woman almost never retains a man. The ones who stay are always effeminate men, which makes these women tire of them. I always recommend that men connect with their masculinity because a masculine man knows how to manifest femininity in his woman. If you don't know how to do this, you end up like the disastrous examples we saw before.
Next time your man asks you out for a dinner date to see you, whatever, say you have plans.
At this point, we are just cosplaying secure people. Genuinely no hate to this creator. She probably has the best intentions. She probably wants to help you find love, and she's giving you all the tips and tricks to get there. And I'm fully aware that my opinion is not at all popular, and it's so boring. This kind of advice around ego-driven dating is literally meant to be triggering people's attachment styles. So all you ever end up doing when you say, hey, I'm busy, just to get someone to feel more attached to you or more compelled to know you, all you're doing is starting that clock. And you get into this cycle. So you listen to people on the internet telling you, well, this is how you make them crazy. This is how you make them think about you. This is how you make them reach out to you. And you follow all these prescriptive rules only to then end up following a set playbook. So you're set on a script. And in that script, you have specific behaviors. On the outside, you may seem secure. You have hobbies, you have plans, you have other friends. You're not really texting them all the time. But inside, you are so anxious and so preoccupied by what is going on their end. So you play the game, and guess what? You get what you want at the end, that person you've been pining over. But then what happens is you also get something you don't want, which is a whole persona that you had to build just to get that person to notice you. And the worst part is all these tactics are really just meant to trigger the person and not actually think of you as a healthy, caring, thoughtful, independent, beautiful person. We have this overemphasis in society that when you are in a relationship that you have somehow won, that you are succeeding, that you are happy and fulfilled. But so many times we play these games and we get into relationships with people we think that we want, only to then struggle so deeply in them, we wonder what's wrong with us. And I'll tell you, the only thing that's wrong is that you're listening to all of these people tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing so that you can just be in a relationship with whomever. It's why so many anxious people come to me and they say, I don't know how to be in this relationship anymore. And it's because they have pretended to be the cool girl or the cool guy, and they can't keep up those appearances. Avoidants do this too. They'll show up in your life and show you that they're reliable and incredible partners, and then suddenly just disappear with little to no notice. And you'll be left wondering, was this all a lie? And while it's fun to be talking about yourself in terms of being a golden retriever, a black cat, or a German shepherd, at the end of the day, these are just fun ways to talk about relationships. If you do want to take your relationship seriously, you need to start ditching this kind of advice and start doing the work and figuring out who are you really and what do you really want.
Totally agree. We just have to look at businesswomen, or those who lead very corporate lives. They are like black cats, super independent, never needing a man, knowing what they want, always with high self-esteem. These are the groups of women who end up the most alone, because the men around them, or the men on dating apps, or in normal dates, don't go out of their way to conquer these women because they bring a lot of masculine energy to the table. A man doesn't want to be with a woman who behaves like a man. I understand a woman being attractive, being very sexy, but going from that to expecting you to do everything for her because she is the prize, that's not appealing to a man. Why do you think they always complain about attracting sensitive or effeminate men? Because they already have masculine energy. That's why when one of these women gets involved with a masculine man, she reconnects with her feminine energy and falls in love. It's because this man knows how to bring her down from her pedestal. He's the man who, when she gets stubborn about something, knows how to say no and stands firm. This makes her want to please her man because she knows she can't turn him into a doormat with her dramas. She has to get his attention with good treatment. That's why these manipulation tips never work to keep a masculine man by their side. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. What do you think about being a black cat and a golden retriever? Has a woman ever tried to be a black cat with you? How did it all end? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from The Wall.